What is personal style really about? Is it just a reflection of how we wish to express ourselves in different stages of our life? Or does it reverberate much deeper than that, perhaps all the way to our childhood? Today I'm analyzing the link between personal style and childhood, where personal style originates from, whether or not there is evidence or research to back up this connection, and whether or not 5-year-old you already decided your fashion fate for you. And here's your disclaimer warning that I'm working based off of my own knowledge and research, so if you have any knowledge or research or comments to add to the discourse, please do so in the comments below. I love to hear from you guys. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Jemi and I make all sorts of fashion content, so stick around. Without further ado, let's get personal. The definition of personal style. To understand anything going forward in this video, we need to define personal style. Personal style is ultimately a representation of you, a vague summary of who you are, if you will. It can showcase your interests, personality, and how you wish to be perceived by others. As I've said in previous videos, personal style is the journey to self-discovery in one's own personal preferences. It is the very essence of being comfortable with who you are and being unafraid to show it to others. Personal style affects many of your everyday life choices, such as what hobbies you have, how you clothe and accessorize yourself, and even who you follow on social media and the friend groups you surround yourself with. It's a direct representation of your values, what's visually pleasant to you, and how you want other people to treat you. It doesn't fade away or turn into something that's so last season, but rather it sticks with you and shape-shifts itself with every version of you that was, is, and will be. Before we dive in, I also want to point out something really interesting. You can have a personal style within a style. So for example, let's say you discovered punk at the age of 15 and you've stuck with it ever since. Perhaps your pre-existing music preferences and hobbies guided you towards everything that makes punk what it is, or maybe you just felt like it perfectly reflects your values. At the end of the day though, you may not like some elements of punk that others do. Maybe your personal touch is adding pins to your jacket, or perhaps instead of coloring your hair, you like to accessorize with chains and studs. Just a fun thing to think about if you belong into a specific subculture or aesthetic style. So why should you have a personal style? Personal style helps shape you to become your most authentic self. It can help you understand yourself better and feel more grounded in who you are. Your personal style doesn't cater to anyone but yourself, and it doesn't falter at external pressures from society on how you're supposed to dress and look. But most importantly, your personal style sparks joy in you, and it can look very different for everyone. So for example, let's say you're like me and you loved anything pretty and romantic since you were young. How does it feel when you finally get to wear that dress 10-year-old you always dreamed of? That, my friends, is personal style, and it stems much deeper than your current present version. Where does personal style come from? Is it society? Is it your immediate friends and family? Is it pop culture? Or is it what truly shapes you, your own choices in childhood? To find an answer to this, we must look at what it is that makes personal style what it is. Personal style is always in a cause and effect loop because of how closely it's linked to one's own identity. We are all social creatures and thus our environment shapes us. And because of this, it also shapes the way we represent ourselves visually. This means there's a high chance certain aspects of your personal style are there because of the environment you were brought up in, whether that's climate-wise, financially, culturally, religiously, or socially. Trust me, if I had an unlimited budget and no fear of judgment, I'd look like a cute fairy princess all the time. And naturally, the decade you grow up in also affects your personal style to an extent. For example, if you grew up in the 50s, you'd probably hesitate to call a corset top and jeans an outfit. Point being, personal style is for the most part formed through experiences in our lives and our reactions to them. We take what we like and we leave what doesn't feel right. Because of how deeply personal style is affected by our surroundings, we begin to develop it in our formative years, I'd say between the ages of 3 and 8. It starts with something along the lines of this. 3-year-old you chooses something over and over again, creating a clear pattern of preference recognizable to you and others. For me, it was anything romantic and whimsical, such as tutu skirts, princess dresses, and fairy wings. I was the Maid Marian of Robin Hood, the Wendy Darling of Peter Pan, and most importantly, I was the beautiful main character in all of my stories. Now let's keep in mind that I'm not going to dress as Maid Marian for the rest of my life just because I decided as a kid that I would uphold the values that the story teaches. But what I took from this exposure to romantic ideologies and stories was the values that now define me in the present moment. And it is those values and those hopes and dreams I had as a child that eventually poured themselves into my fashion as well, allowing me to depict the version of myself that I love and am comfortable with. How does personal style evolve and how is it linked to childhood? My cat won't shut up, so he's here with me now. Say hi to Cool, everyone. Hi, Cool, Mr. Loud Meower. I've nicknamed this process in the past as style evolution. Basically, if it's true that our personal style is based off of who we were as children, it means that just like how we grow and evolve, it has to evolve with us. Increased exposure to the world, different cultures, and environments shape us. But even through the test of time, there are parts of us that stay the same because they are part of our personality. I believe it is that personality that is the very root of personal style. After all, personal does sound pretty close to the word personality, doesn't it? Speaking of which, this little loud meowing void and I would personally love it if you liked this video and subscribed if you're enjoying this video so far. Okay, back to the theories. So as we grow, we change according to our environment. One second you may have thought you loved everything vintage, and then suddenly you find a specific time period that perfectly sums up the way you want to style yourself. This is the process of your style evolution, tweaking your preferences and style according to the new information you discover along the way. But behind liking vintage or a specific time period, maybe you've just always loved classic romance as a kid. And that is the very truest essence of your personal style. Another thing to note about style evolution is that your style naturally changes with age. You may not want to dress in tutu skirts at age 60 like you did at age 6. Though I think it would still look pretty cool. We'll hop back on the proper research materials on the link between childhood and personal style in just a moment, but first we've got to address something else. I know, there's always more. Other factors that impact personality and personal style. A final note on style evolution is that like other environmental and societal factors, there are notable influences from parents and a child's inner circle that could shape the way a child perceives their sense of self and self-expression. Factors that directly impact their relationship to fashion include, but are not limited to, religion, financial background, race, and societal body shaming. Parenting methods often have a direct impact on how children grow up to express themselves and how independent they become. If your parents or other adults in your life guided you via religion, body image ideals, and such, you may have grown up with very specific thoughts about what fashion should look like and what is appropriate to wear. In my case though, my parents mostly let me wear what I wanted because they probably knew that it was one of the only ways in which I felt safe to express myself. Being bullied as a kid though, I eventually got bullied for my style as well, so I started to mimic whatever the cool kids were wearing at school. Funnily enough, in high school, I bounced right back and started to find my own personal style again. But if your parents monitored your attire choices or had complete control over it, it could be that you feel pretty lost when it comes to personal style or fashion in general. It could be that you feel like you don't really know your preferences in fashion or outside of it. It's even possible that because of your restricted or overexposed access to fashion, you now resent it and stay away from anything that your parents would like for you to wear. One of the most common examples of this is mothers pushing hyper-feminine styles onto their daughters who don't feel comfortable in hyper-feminine clothes. Usually these children grow up to become adults who prefer masculine or androgynous styles over hyper-feminine clothing that their moms tried to make them wear. If you're an influential person in a kid's life, I think it's important that while you don't let them walk out in a crop top, you also support their independence in their fashion choices and attire, and you encourage them to feel comfortable in their bodies. It is our responsibility to make sure that we don't pass on the hurt that we received in our generation to the next generation. We don't need them to get hurt by society like we did. I'm talking to you early 2000s body shaming. Is there evidence that our childhood preferences, hobbies, and experiences define our personal style? We already know from extensive research that our childhood dictates how we turn out as adults for the most part. The way we lived as kids affects things such as behavior patterns, attachment styles, and how we relate to the world. The parenting methods used in your family, the presence of siblings or lack thereof, and even small things like did your parents let you pick out your own hobbies, affects the choices you make and the way you behave as an adult. Please feel free to do more research on this and read up on the articles that I linked in the description box. This is kind of a psychological rabbit hole. Today though, I'm focusing on an article that tackles personal style and self-identity. Honestly, I'm positively surprised that I found this article because I did not expect to find anything. Now because this is going to be some lengthy paraphrasing of an article, I'm going to be reading off of my computer so as to not mess up any of my paraphrasing. The article written by Justina Vingelite is called Personal Clothing Style and Self-Concept: Embracing the True, the Ideal, and the Creative Self. I think it does an excellent deep dive into personal style and the sense of self. Vingelite reported on her qualitative study on the topic, I quote, "Interpretative phenomenological analysis revealed that personal clothing style constitutes an embodiment of the true self, representation of the ideal self, and expression of the creative self. More specifically, personal clothing style is predicted on self-knowledge, consistency, and enduring sense of comfort. It is also perceived to actualize desired self-conceptions and one's creative potential. And that's the end of the quote. I'm sorry, I probably absolutely botched up some of the words. Please forgive me. I'm not a native English speaker, that's my excuse. To sum it up, personal style is heavily reliant on self-identity and the exploration of that identity in a creative space, as well as the potential of its changes in the future. Your style is a reflection of your unique history, as well as the path to guide you to your future versions. Vingelite also notes that other research has shown that women specifically tend to use clothing to create positive and coherent versions of themselves, using their clothes as a visual reflection of their characteristics, preferences, and such. Several of Vingelite's study participants said that they emphasized the importance of self-development as their personal style required them to learn who they are. Their personal style developed with age as a result of growing self-knowledge and self-acceptance. And that, my friends, leads us to wonder, when do we develop a sense of self? That's right, when we're young. I think it's safe to say that like our career paths, future hobbies, and other things, our personal style is heavily affected by who we've been since the beginning and who we've become since. Experience and self-reflection are a huge part of identity development and shape us into who we are now. For example, if you loved dancing as a 2-year-old, most likely you still love to dance. And similarly, in most cases, I think what you opted for as a kid or steered away from is what you still gravitate towards or away from as an adult. Now, of course, there might be a surprising turnaround of events for your personal style. For example, when you try food that you haven't tried since you were a kid and you knew you hated it as a kid, and then you're positively surprised as an adult by how much you like it, we may also surprise ourselves with where we end up in our personal style. For example, a parent of yours dressed you up overly feminine when you were a kid, and so you steered away from everything feminine until you grew up. And then later in life, away from your parents' sight and judgment, you try on feminine clothes and you just flip a switch. In my case, I dressed like a tomboy in my early teens because, well, I was pretty shapely for a 13-year-old, and I hated pedophiles following me around and catcalling me. When I turned 16, I suddenly decided, fuck it. I want to wear cute dresses, I want to walk around looking pretty, and these creeps will never go away, so I might as well. And here I am, a mix of both of those tomboyish qualities and the feminine qualities. But like I said, in my case, I was afraid of adult men literally following me and stalking me, which is why I dressed like a tomboy. But that wasn't really exactly how I wanted to dress, but it's how I felt safest to dress. To further argue for childhood affecting personal style, we often develop our identity in adolescence, with most research pointing specifically towards the age range of 10 to 18. Identity is knowing who you are and why you are the way you are. Our experiences shape our choices, and we commit to the choices that we believe serve us best. Not having that information about ourselves is often what creates a so-called identity crisis. And this identity crisis can occur in many aspects of our lives, including fashion. To know one's personal style, one must truly know themselves. For example, for my feminine friends, why do you love dressing in pink and ruffles and pretty dresses? Is it because somebody told you to love them, or is it because something in your childhood influenced you into accepting it as a part of your identity? Did it find its special place in your heart? This is what personal style is. It has a reason for its existence, and it's just a fraction of who you are as a whole person. But at the end of the day, it's not a fleeting trend. It's its own identity that has stuck with you since you were small, and it has evolved with you, perhaps in predictable or surprising ways. The future of personal style. What about the style you're going for that is not yet a part of you? I'd say that is you trying to become the next version of yourself. In the same way we evolve our personal style with age, it also evolves according to our dreams and aspirations. So if you feel like you belong in something you're not a part of yet, and it's been calling to you all this time, but due to societal pressures or other reasons you haven't pursued it, can it become your personal style? The short answer is yes. Referring back to Vingelite's article, there is a section that talks about representing the ideal self. Because we are social creatures at heart, it's impossible to fully separate the thoughts about how others perceive us. Thus, our personal style can be a mix of our own identity and the identity we prefer to show others. After all, none of us are perfect, and we all have things we want to hide from others. Like a mask. The ideal self is like a mask. I'm going to get geeky for a second here, but think of it like the masks Link wears in The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Each mask gives him a unique power-up or special skill, and in the same way, I think we tend to mix our personal style with a bit of our ideal persona, if you will. Personal style is a mishmash of who you are and how you wish others to perceive you. Vingelite ends her study stating that personal style was, according to her study, quote, an aspect of a deeply psychological process which allowed women to embody the true self represent the ideal self, and express the creative self. However, aspiring to become a new version of yourself is very different from aspiring to become someone else. This also includes trying to fit into societal norms via the use of fashion. Just because you dress like a cool kid doesn't mean you turn into a cool kid. This is where we hit a wall with personal style. I personally don't believe it's a tool you use to become someone who you aren't. It cannot morph you into a different person, and if you're trying to be something that ultimately is not in any shape or form a part of your values, aesthetic preferences, and such, you don't actually have a personal style. At best, I'd call it an aspirational style or a trendy style, depending on the reasoning behind it. Of course, experimentation is a huge part of finding your style, but the reason behind the experimentation is what either brings you closer or takes you further from knowing your style. My own reflections on my personal style and my childhood. Now, this wouldn't be a fair video if I didn't bring some of my own evidence to the table. I'm going to show you guys some pictures of me as a kid and walk you through whether or not the clothes I wore back then reflect on my personal style now. I'm pretty confident because I feel like I really know my personal style right now, but we'll see what happens. We're starting off with toddler age. You would think that it was my mom who put me in tutu skirts and pretty frilly dresses, but no, she actually tried to hide them away from me and failed to do so because I always managed to relocate them and wear my tutu skirts absolutely everywhere, and I mean everywhere. According to my mom, I loved nothing more than feminine, dreamy, and pretty dresses, and honestly, that checks out. I've always loved looking either cute and cuddly, tomboyish and funky, or pretty and feminine. Those are like the 3 standard modes that have stayed with me throughout my life, and of course they've shape-shifted here and there according to how my identity has changed. If you look at my current style, I still absolutely love cute and pretty dresses, but nowadays I tend to mix my minimalist style with funky or elegant elements to create interesting outfits. Another thing is I still absolutely love wearing color, but specifically in that blue, purple, green, and pink color palette. Looking at these pictures, I feel like I'm my own princess, but I'm also a cool, mature adult and a funky indie kid, and those are the parts of me that have stayed with me this whole time. I can absolutely see myself recreating my childhood outfits. In fact, let me know if that's a video topic that would interest you. I feel like I could pull it off. Moving on to preteen and teen years, my teenage fashion was complicated by a few outside factors. First of all, like I mentioned before, I was bullied at school for literally any reason possible that they could find, including my style. Secondly, I developed curves a lot faster than a regular teenager, so I was unfortunately objectified and sexualized by adult men all the time, which really made me want to hide away in a corner. So if you ever wondered what my answer was to the question of choosing a bear or a man, I choose the bear. Because the bear won't sexualize and stalk a literal child. Because of these factors, I leaned into the tomboy fashion really heavily. I vividly remember dragging my mom through the men's sections at clothing stores so that I could buy all of my clothes in a size large and hide away under baggy hoodies. Unfortunately, I don't really have any photos from this time because I think I was just super depressed and insecure, so of course I didn't want to be taking photos and showcasing myself to the world. I eventually circled back to the more feminine aspects of my style at age 17 when I realized that I just wanted to look pretty because men will be creepy no matter what I wear. I vividly remember going into this store, seeing this like mint green dress and trying it on and just falling in love. And like something just like clicked in me. And up until that point, it was tomboy stuff only. And suddenly I was just like, I want to wear all the dresses. Fast forwarding to my early 20s, and now I think my university years actually really helped me shape my personal style and come out of my shell a little bit. Because I studied film, my class was full of fashion diversity, which made it easier for me to feel good about what I wanted to wear. And later, when I graduated and moved to New York City, that's when I really introduced the ultra-feminine attire to my collection. Fast forward to the present moment, because I work in retail, I have to look professional pretty much all the time, so I wear outfits that are professional, but I add my unique little touch to them. So to sum up this entire video in a single sentence, my opinion is, supported by evidence of course, that personal style is affected by childhood. In some ways, 5-year-old you was already working on your personal style. I've been filming this video for 3.5 hours, so if you're still here, thank you so much for watching because this video has taken me forever to research, script, and film. As I said before, please let me know your thoughts on this topic. I simply scratched the surface and there is so much to explore around this topic, but if I explored more, this video would probably be 4 hours long. Don't forget to subscribe, watch another video maybe, and I'll see you next time.